time for dinner. We are beginning the book of Isaiah. The vision of Yeshayahu, son of Amoz, which he saw concerning Yehuda and Yerushalayim in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, Yizkiyahu, sovereigns of Yehuda. Hear, O heavens, and listen, O earth. For Jehovah has spoken. I have reared and brought up children, but they have transgressed against me. An ox knows its owner, and a donkey its master's crib. Yisrael does not know, my people have not understood. Alas, sinning nation, a people loaded with crookedness, a seed of evildoers, sons acting corruptly. They have forsaken Jehovah. They have provoked the set-apart one of Israel. They have went backward. Why should you be stricken any more? You continue in apostasy. All the head is sick, and all the heart faints. From the sole of the foot to the head there is no soundness in it. Wounds and bruises and open sores. They have not been closed or bound up or soothed with ointment. Your land is laid waste. Your cities are burned with fire. Strangers devour your land in your presence, and it is laid waste as overthrown by strangers. And daughter of Sion is left as a booth in a vineyard, as a hut in a garden of cucumbers, as a besieged city. Unless Jehovah of hosts had left to us a small remnant, we would have become like Sodom, we would have become like Gomorrah. Hear the word of Jehovah, you rulers of Sodom. Give ear to the Torah of our Elohim, you people of Gomorrah. Of what use to me are your many slaughterings, declares Jehovah. I have made enough of ascending offerings. I have had enough of ascending offerings of rams and the fat of fed beasts. I do not delight in the blood of bulls or of lambs or goats. When you come to appear before me, who has required this from your hand to trample my courtyards? Stop bringing futile offerings. Incense, it is an abomination to me. New moons, Sabbaths, the calling of gatherings. I am unable to hear. I am unable to bear unrighteousness and assembly. My being hates your new moons and your appointed times. They are a trouble to me. I am weary of bearing them. And when you spread out your hands, I hide my eyes from you. Even though you make many prayers, I do not hear. Your hands have become filled with blood. Wash yourselves. Make yourselves clean. Put away the evil of your doing from before my eyes. Stop doing evil. Learn to do good. Seek right ruling. Reprove the oppressor. Defend the fatherless. Plead for the widow. Come now and let us reason together, says Jehovah. Though your sins are like scarlet, they shall be white as snow. Though they are red like crimson, they shall be as wool. If you submit and obey, you shall eat the good of the land. But if you refuse and rebel, you shall be devoured by the sword, for the mouth of Jehovah has spoken. How the steadfast city has become a whore. I have filled it with right ruling, righteousness lodged in it. But now, murderers, your silver has become dross, your wine is mixed with water. Your rulers are stubborn and companions of thieves. Everyone loves bribes and runs after rewards. They do not defend the fatherless, nor does the cause of the widow reach them. Therefore, the Master declares, Jehovah of hosts, the mighty one of Israel, I shall be eased by my adversaries, and I shall avenge my enemies. And I shall turn my hand against you, and shall refine your dross as with lye, and shall remove all your alloy. And I shall give back your judges as the first, and your counselors as at the beginning. After this you shall be called the city of righteousness, a steadfast city. Sion shall be ransomed with right ruling, and her returning ones with righteousness. And the destruction of transgressors and of sinners is together, and those who forsake Jehovah shall be consumed. For they shall be ashamed of the terebinth trees which you have desired, and you shall be embarrassed because of the gardens which you have chosen. For you shall be as terebinth whose leaves fade, and as a garden that has no water. The strong shall be for tow, and his work for a spark, and both shall burn together, with no one to extinguish. The word that Yeshayahu, the son of Amoz, saw concerning Yehuda and Yerushalayim. And it shall be in the latter days that the mountains of the house of Jehovah is established on the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it. And many people shall come and say, Come, and let us go up to the mountain of Jehovah, to the house of the Elohim of Yaakov, and let him teach us his ways, and let us walk in his paths. For out of Sion comes forth the Torah, and the word of Jehovah from Yerushalayim. And he shall judge between the nations, and shall reprove many peoples, and they shall bear their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither teach battle any more. O house of Yaakov, come and let us walk in the light of Jehovah. For you have forsaken your people, the house of Yaakov, because they have been filled from the east, and practice magic like the Philistines, and they are pleased with the children of foreigners. And their land is filled with silver and gold, and there is no end to their treasures. And their land is filled with horses, and there is no end to their chariots. And their land is filled with idols. They bow themselves to the work of their own hands, to what their own fingers have made. And the lowly bows down, and the high is humbled, therefore you do not forgive them. Enter into the rock, and hide in the dust, because of the fear of Jehovah, and the splendor of his excellency. The lofty looks of man shall be humbled, the pride of men shall be bowed down, and Jehovah alone shall be exalted in that day. For Jehovah of hosts has a day against all that is proud and lofty, against all that is lifted up, so that it is brought low, and against all the cedars of Lebanon that are high and lifted up, and against all the oaks of Bashan, and against all the high mountains, and against the hills that are lifted up, and against every lofty tower, and against every strong wall, and against all the ships of Tarshish, and against all the desirable craft. And the loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the pride of men shall be brought low, and Jehovah alone shall be exalted in that day, and the idols completely pass away. And they shall go into the holes of the rocks, and into the caves of the earth, from dread of Jehovah, and the splendor of his excellency, when he arises to shake the earth mightily. In that day man shall throw away his idols of silver, and his idols of gold, which they made, each for himself to worship, to the moles and bats, to go into the clefts of the rocks, and into the crags of the rugged rocks, because of the fear of Jehovah, and the splendor of his excellency, when he arises to shake the earth mightily. Cease from man, whose breath is in his nostrils, for in what is he to be reckoned upon? For look, the Master Jehovah of hosts is turning aside from Jerusalem and from Yehuda the stock and the store, all the supply of bread and all the supply of water. The mighty man and the man of battle, the judge and the prophet, and the diviner and the elder, the commander of 50 and the highly respected man, and the counselor and the skilled craftsman and the clever enchanter. And I shall make youths their heads, and children shall rule over them, and the people shall exert pressure, man on his neighbor, the young rise up against the older, and the lightly esteemed against the highly esteemed. When a man takes hold of his brother in the house of his father by the garment and says, Come, be a chief over us, and let his ruin be under your hand. He shall swear in that day, saying, I am not a healer, for in my house is neither bread nor garment. Do not make me a chief of the people. For Jerusalem has stumbled, and Yehuda has fallen, because their tongue and their doings are against Jehovah, to provoke the eyes of his esteem. The look of their faces witnesses against them, and they declare their sin as Sodom. They do not hide it. Woe to their beings, for they have brought evil upon themselves. Say to the righteous, It is well, for they eat the fruit of their doings. Woe to the wrong, evil, for the reward of his hand is done to him. My people, youths exert pressure on them, and women rule over them. O my people, your leaders lead you astray, and swallow the way of your paths. Jehovah shall stand up to plead, and is standing to judge the peoples. Jehovah enters into judgment with the elders of his people and its heads. It is you who have eaten up the vineyard. The plunder of the poor is in your houses. What do you mean by crushing my people and grinding the faces of the poor, declares the Master, Jehovah of hosts? And Jehovah says, Because the daughters of Sion are haughty, and walk with outstretched necks and seductive eyes, walking and mincing as they go, making a jingling with their feet. Therefore Jehovah shall smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Sion, and Jehovah expose their nakedness. In that day Jehovah takes away the finery of the anklets and the headbands and the crescents, the pendants, the bracelets and the veils, the headdresses and the leg ornaments, and the sashes, and the perfume bottles, and the amulets, the rings and the nose jewels, the costly robes and the cloaks, and the shawls and the purses, the mirrors, and the fine linen, and the turbans, and the large veils. And it shall be instead of sweet fragrance, a smell of decay, and instead of a belt, a rope, and instead of well-scent hair, baldness, and instead of festal robe, a girding of sackcloth, and branding instead of loveliness. Your men shall fall by the sword, and your strength in battle, and her gates shall lament and mourn, and she, deserted, shall sit on the ground. And in that day 7 women shall take hold of one man, saying, We shall eat our own food and wear our own clothes, only let us be called by your name, to take away our reproach. In that day the branch of Jehovah shall be splendid and esteemed, and the fruit of the earth shall be excellent and comely for the escaped ones of Israel. And it shall be that he who is left in Sion and he who remains in Jerusalem is called set apart, everyone who is written among the living in Jerusalem. And Jehovah has washed away the filth of the daughters of Sion, and rinsed away the blood of Jerusalem from our midst, by the spirit of judgment and by the spirit of burning. Then Jehovah shall create above every dwelling place of Mount Sion and above her gatherings a cloud and smoke by day, and the shining of a flaming fire by night, for over all the esteem shall be a covering, and a booth for shade in the day from the heat, and for a refuge, a place of refuge, and for a shelter from the storm and rain. Please let me sing to the one I love, a song for my loved one regarding his vineyard. My loved one has a vineyard on a fertile hill, and he dug it up and cleared it of stones, and planted it with the choicest vine, and built a watchtower in its midst, and also made a winepress in it. And he waited for the yielding of grapes, but it yielded rotten ones. And now, O inhabitant of Yerushalayim and man of Yehuda, please judge between me and my vineyard. What more could have been done to my vineyard that I have not done in it? Why, when I waited for the yielding of grapes, did it yield rotten ones? And now, please let me inform you what I am doing to my vineyard. To take away its hedge, and it shall be burned, to break down its wall, and it shall be trampled down. And I lay it waste. It is not pruned or dug, and thorn bushes and weeds shall come up. And I command the clouds not to rain on it. For the vineyard of Jehovah of hosts is the house of Yisrael, and the man of Yehuda is his pleasant plant. He looked for right ruling, but see oppression, for righteousness, but see weeping. Woe to those who join house to house, who add field to field, until there is no room, and you are made to dwell alone in the midst of the land. In my hearing, Jehovah of hosts said, truly many houses shall be a waste, big and fine ones without inhabitant. For 10 acres of vineyard yield 1 bath, and an omer of seed yields 1 ephah. Woe to those who rise early in the morning pursuing strong drink, who stay up late at night. Wine inflames them. And the lyre and the harp and the tambourine and flute and wine are in their feasts. And they do not regard the deeds of Jehovah, nor see the work of his hands. Therefore my people have gone into exile, because they have no knowledge. And their esteemed men are starved, and their crowd dried up with thirst. Therefore Sheol has made itself wide, and opened its mouth without law. Their splendor and their crowd and their uproar, and he who is exulting within her shall go down into it. And a man is bowed down, and mortal man humbled, and the eyes of the proud are humbled. But Jehovah of hosts is exalted in judgment, and the set-apart El is set apart in righteousness. And the lambs shall feed in their pasture, and the stranger shall eat in the waste places of the fat ones. Woe to those who draw crookedness with cords of falsehood, and sin as with wagon ropes, who are saying, let him hurry, let him hasten his work, so that we see it. And let the counsel of the set-apart one of Yisrael draw near and come, so that we know. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and clever in their own sight. Woe to the mighty to drink wine, and brave men to mix strong drink, who declare right the wrong for a bribe, and the righteousness of the righteous they turn aside from him. Therefore, as a tongue of fire devours the stubble, and the flame consumes the chaff, their root is as rottenness, and their blossom goes up like dust, because they have rejected the Torah of Jehovah of hosts, and despised the word of the set-apart one of Yisrael. Therefore the displeasure of Jehovah has burned against his people, And he stretched out his hand against them and strikes them, and the mountains tremble. And their carcass is as filth in the middle of the streets. With all this, his displeasure has not turned back, and his hand is still stretched out. And he shall lift up a banner to the nations from afar, and shall whistle to them from the end of the earth, and see, they come with speed swiftly. Not one of them is weary or stumbling, not one stumbles or sleeps. Not a belt shall be loosened on their loins, nor the thong of their sandals be broken. Their arrows are sharp, and all their bows bent. Their horses' hooves shall seem like flint, and their wheels like a whirlwind. Their roar is like that of a lion. They roar like young lions, and they growl and seize prey, and slip away with no one to rescue. And in that day they shall growl over it, as with the growling of the sea. And one shall look at the earth and see darkness and distress, and light shall be darkened by the clouds. In the year that sovereign Uzziah died, I saw Jehovah sitting on a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the Hekal. Above it stood seraphim. Each one had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he flew. And one cried to another and said, Set apart, set apart, set apart is Jehovah of hosts. All the earth is filled with his esteem. And the posts of the door were shaken by the voice of him who cried out, and the house was filled with smoke. And I said, Woe to me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the sovereign Jehovah of hosts. And one of the seraphim flew to me, having in his hand a live coal, which he had taken with the tongs from the slaughter place. And he touched my mouth with it and said, See, this has touched your lips. Your crookedness is taken away, and your sin is covered. And I heard the voice of Jehovah saying, Whom do I send, and who would go for us? And I said, Here I am, send me. And he said, Go, and you shall say to this people, Hearing, you hear, but do not understand, and seeing, you see, but do not know. Make the heart of this people fat, and their ears heavy, and shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes, and hear with their ears, and understand with their heart, and shall turn and be healed. Then I said, Jehovah, until when? And he answered, Until the cities are laid waste and without inhabitant, and the houses are without a man, and the land is laid waste, a ruin. And Jehovah has removed men far away, and the forsaken places be many in the midst of the land. But still there is a 10th part in it, and it shall again be for a burning, like a terebinth tree and like an oak, whose stump remains when it is cut down. The set-apart seed is a stump. And it came to be in the days of Ahaz, son of Jotham, son of Uzziah, sovereign of Yehuda, that Rezin, sovereign of Aram, and Pekah, son of Remaliah, who, sovereign of Israel, went up to Jerusalem to fight against it, but could not prevail against it. And it was reported to the house of David, saying, Aram has set up camp in Ephraim, and his heart and the heart of his people were moved as the trees of the forest are moved with the wind. And Jehovah said to Yeshayahu, Go out now to meet Ahaz, you and Shear Yashub, your son, at the end of the channel of the upper pool on the highway of the launderer's field, and say to him, take heed and be calm. Do not fear nor be faint-hearted for these 2 stubs of smoking firebands, for the fierce displeasure of Rezin and Aram and the son of Relmeyahu. Because Aram, Ephraim, and the son of Relmeyahu have plotted evil against you, saying, let us go up against Yehudah and tear it apart, and break it open for ourselves, and set a sovereign over them, the son of Tabel. Thus said the Master Jehovah, it is not going to stand, nor shall it take place. For the head of Aram in Damasek, and the head of Damasek is Rezin, and within 65 years Ephraim is to be broken as a people. And the head of Ephraim is Shomaron, and the head of Shomaron is the son of Relmeyahu. If you do believe, you are not steadfast. If you do not believe, you are not steadfast. And Jehovah spoke again to Ahaz, saying, ask a sign for yourself from Jehovah, your Elohim, make deep the request, or make it high. But Ahaz said, I do not ask, nor try Jehovah. And he said, hear now, house of David. Is it not enough that you weary men, that you weary my Elohim also? Therefore Jehovah himself gives you a sign. Look, the Alma conceives and gives birth to a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. He eats curds and honey when he knows to refuse evil, and chooses the good. For before the child knows to refuse evil and choose the good, the land that you dread is to be forsaken by both her sovereigns. Jehovah brings on you and your people and your father's house days, and have not come since the day that Ephraim turned away from Yehudah, the sovereign of Ashshur. And it shall be in that day that Jehovah whistles for the fly, that is in the farthest part of the rivers of Mizraim, and for the bee that is in the land of Ashshur. And they shall come, and all of them shall rest in the steep ravines, and in the clefts of the rocks, and on the weeds, and in all pastures. In that day Jehovah shall shave with a razor, hired beyond the river, with the sovereign of Ashshur, the head and the hair of the legs, and also remove the beard. And it shall be in that day that a man keeps alive a young cow and 2 sheep. And it shall be, he shall eat curds because of the plenty milk he gets, for everyone left in the land shall eat curds. And it shall be in that day, every place where there were 1,000 vines worth 1,000 shekels of silver, let it be for thorn bushes and weeds. With arrows and bows one shall go there, because all the land shall be thorn bushes and weeds. To all the hills which were tilled with the hoe, you do not go for fear of thorn bushes and weeds, but it shall be for sending oxen to, and a place for sheep to roam.